Hey Hannah, how are you?
Hey Jackie, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I hear somebody's radio in the background.
I'm sharing with you the Jadens Resido thermal printer. Now, this is not like a thermal label printer. This
Thanks. All right, everybody, we're going to get started here in about 2 minutes. I'm going to ask everybody to mute themselves as you're coming on. If you don't know how to do that, I'm going to do it on my end for you, just to let you know.
Hey Hannah, I made it. It's Jan. Hope you're okay.
Yep, you're good to go. I'm going to mute you just to let you know, okay?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Erin, can you hear me now? All right, everybody. We've got about 1 more minute that we're going to let everybody on. Make sure everybody settles in. And just a reminder, we're going to we're going to ask that everybody stays on mute, just so that we can kind of present what we need to talk about. And we'll talk about taking questions and things like that too. 1 more minute. All right. We are going to get started here. Happy Friday, Junior, to everyone. Hopefully, if you're still at work, you can head on home after this, or log off if you already are at home. Thank you for joining us. We are going to talk about the new rent increase policy that we are putting into place here. To give you a little bit of housekeeping first, for those of you who are just signing on, I'm going to keep everybody on mute or ask that you stay on mute. And if you don't know how to do that, I'm going to go ahead and do that for you. And then if you have questions, when we are allowing questions, I'm going to ask that you raise your hand, or just put in the chat that you do have a question, and then we'll try to kind of go in order here. We do understand that this is a hard topic to hear about, and we know that this new policy is going to be a little bit hard to kind of deal with. And as property owners, we understand, but just remember that we are in this with you. And we want to keep saying that because, we're being affected by this as well. And we hate to give you all bad news, but sometimes we have to do that. And Kim will go into detail there a little bit too. So all that being said, Kim, if you would like to begin.
I sure will. Thanks everyone for coming. I'm Kim Longwell. I'm the director of the Housing Choice Voucher Program. For you who don't know me, well, as Hannah said, we did not take this decision lightly. We looked at market studies. We looked at what's happening in our country with the new administration, and we looked at some. Can somebody please, thank you. And we looked at news from our industry. So before I start, I'd like to read you a couple of the reasons we've made this decision. One that we, like I said, did not take lightly. So the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities published a report, and the proposed funding levels at the House would result .
Hey, Kim, you're muted.
Better?
Yeah, yep, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so let me start again. The Center for Budget and Policy Priorities published a report. And what they said was proposed House funding levels could result in nearly 750,000 fewer people receiving vouchers, which builds up our homelessness and housing instability. The House bill essentially freezes funding at 2024 levels, creating a severe $4.3 billion in shortfall. The Senate passed a bipartisan bill with a funding increase, but it still falls short by about $800 million. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of households. Report also states that uncertainty about funding levels from Congress has already prompted some housing agencies to cease issuing vouchers to new households, forcing families to remain on wait lists that are already typically years long. The last time we opened our waiting list was in July of 2022. Others have pulled back vouchers that have been issued to families but have not yet been used to rent a home. This lack of sufficient rental assistance affects marginalized groups, including people of color, women, people with disabilities, children, and seniors. HUD recently released new data showing a number of people experiencing homelessness was 18% higher in January of 2024 than January of 2023. So I know all of you realize that this is crucial. We have families out there who are homeless. We have families out there who are living in cars who need their vouchers. So the other thing I would like to tell you is during the confirmation hearing on January 16th, our new HUD secretary, who is Scott Turner, stated that he could not commit to protecting federal housing and homelessness programs from significant spending cuts. We took all of this into consideration, and we made the hard decision that one of the things we can do is limit our monthly rent increases to $50. I pulled some rent increases that folks have asked for, and it's an average of $300 a month. There are some landlords who are asking for $600 a month. I had a landlord today ask for over $1,000 a month rent increase. Any rental community, if they ask their tenants for a $300 rent increase, I would venture to say they would have no tenants left. So $50 a month, I do believe is in the market standard now. What I did was I took the total of the families that we have leased on February 1st. We had 5,512 families under leased. We're serving that many. I took that times the $300 per month increase, and that we would have spent $19.8 million this year on rent increases alone. That's a lot of families you can house from our waiting list. So that is where we stand now. We are asking for your cooperation with the $50 rent increase. If you choose that you do not wish to house to your tenant for the $50 rent increase, please let us know at the recertification time, 60 days before. We will issue your tenant a voucher to move. So I open now for questions and comments.
And again, the way that we'll do this, if you know how to raise your hand, we'll do that here via Zoom. And if not, I'm going to go ahead and monitor the chat to put people in line to ask questions. No way. There's no way.
Must be dinner time.
Okay. Hi, Cheryl. Cheryl Richardson is asking, how are you handling owners that are way over and under?
Okay, so let me explain the difference between payment standards and fair market rents. Fair market rents are set by HUD in Washington, D.C. at our HUD headquarters. So that, reading the chat there. So payment standards can be anywhere from 90% to 110% of the fair market rent. We have placed everyone, even in tier 6, at the 110% of fair market rent for our payment standards. Our budget could afford that last year till about August, when HUD stepped in and said, oh, you're spending more money than you're taking in. We were very fortunate that HUD said, okay, at the end of the year, we're going to give you that money so that you could pay housing assistance for everyone. And then you will start next year at what we give you. Problem is, we don't know what they're giving us. HUD typically gives us our budget somewhere April, May. So we are flying by the seat of our pants. So this very much is like your household. When you have extra money, hey, let's go on vacation. Let's buy a car. But when you don't, you stop buying eggs, essentially. So that is where we are with the payment standards. As for people who are over, any rent over the payment standard is on your tenant. We can only pay up to the payment standard. If you have a tenant who has a 1-bedroom voucher in a 2-bedroom unit, and you have asked for 2-bedroom payment standard, we are only going to go up to the 1-bedroom payment standard, which means your tenant is responsible for the remainder. That's why I've always preached, be careful what you ask for, because your tenant will say, sure, I'll do that, until it comes time to actually pay the rest of that money. So be cautious. As for people who are way under, we've been giving rent increases for years. If you haven't asked for it by now, I'm sorry, but we have been giving rent increases, as I said, for so many years. You should have asked for it then. Now, as for new owners, you buy a property, your old owner is going to the new owner has said, no, we have so many, such less payment standards, such less rent, we will work with you there.
I feel like last time, Kim, we kind of ended the last Zoom with a good question. I didn't think you would think that that would also be common sense, but maybe talk about side payments. Maybe just
About what?
about side payments, about how landlords can't accept side payments. I feel like that was a fun fact, surprisingly.
Thank you. You cannot accept side payments. If we don't give you the rent increase you want, you can't tell the tenant, well, they gave me $50, but I'm asking for 100. So I want the extra 50 from you. You can't do that. That's a side payment. That is illegal.
Okay. If anyone needs Kim to elaborate on that, we can do that here in a second. But we've got 3 questions. We're gonna go Heather, Jackie, and then Fatim. So Heather Rayberg, hello, the floor is yours.
Hi, how are you, Hannah?
Good, how are you?
We talk via email all the time. It's nice.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah.
I just had a question. I understand the stance that you're taking. I completely agree. But my question is, we had put rent request increases in for 2 of our tenants prior to this new guidelines. So would those be allowed as long as they're? I mean, we never put ridiculous requests in. But I mean, as long as it's since we put it in before the new guidelines, or is it going to be basically you're going to go backwards and take, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So we are not going back. That would defeat the entire purpose of our budget. If you put them in before and your rent recertification is May or after, you will receive the $50 rent increase if it is rent reasonable. You don't just automatically get that. It has to be rent reasonable. I'm starting to do some rent reasonables in various areas, and people's rents, landlords' rents are well over what is rent reasonable.
Yeah. Well, no, I definitely think we did rent reasonable because we try not to put too much to put any undue pressure onto our tenants. But I just didn't know if, like, since we put it in prior to the new guidelines, we put the request in, I think, in sometime in January.
For what month?
I think one renews in, let me think, one renews in April and one renews in May, I believe.
Okay, the one in April, we are going ahead and doing because the housing coordinators are doing their recertifications now. So we are looking at the rent reasonable of what you requested. Starting in May, it will be $50. It doesn't matter when you put it in.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. Jackie.
Hey Hannah, this I'm sitting outside my wife. This is
Oh,
Melvin here.
hi. Yeah, hey, Melvin.
Hello. Hey, I got a couple of questions. So, Kim, regarding you mentioned tough decision, housing authority, totally get that. So, are your peer housing authorities doing the same thing? So, City of Pittsburgh, McKeesport Housing Authority, or is that unknown?
I was asked that in the previous Zoom meeting, and I don't know. I have no idea what they're doing.
Okay.
I do know that housing authorities across the country, there were probably, I think I had heard 60% of housing authorities last year were in shortfall.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for that answer. My next question is in terms of the standards. So I know the new standards are I think I had an example where as we try to price things, we try to price it by the book into a T. But I think there was an instance where, inspector, we did a inspection, had a first fail, had a negotiated rent. After it passed, it came back with a negotiated rent that was even lower. So is that tying in with the standards and I think last time I got feedback that there are rankings for how things are going now in terms of the type of unit. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that if you have more intel? Because it seems to have changed substantially from the norm.
We go by rent reasonable.
Okay.
So I ran some numbers from the market from last year.
Mhm.
And where are your units?
A lot of them tier 6 to Norfolk Sales, East McKeesport, Stowe.
Okay, East McKeesport, the rents decreased by 7%.
Mhm.
McKees Rocks rentals decreased by 0.4%. In Wilkinsburg, rental prices are down $40 a month.
Mhm.
So it has to be rent reasonable. I totally get you're trying to price it within the payment standards, within what the market is. If you can find 3 rent comparables that are on non-assisted units, then please send them to us and we will look at them.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Great, let's head to the chat. 2 questions. One from Fatim. So we're backtracking a little bit. So if HUD is giving the budget in April and the funds given are not available for all of the voucher holders, are there households that would potentially lose their voucher? It's a good
No.
question.
No, we are not going that route. That is why I am being proactive and doing everything possible for that not to happen. That's why I said in my letter, we don't want that to happen. I don't want to add to homelessness. I don't want people to live in their cars. I want people to be housed. So no, they won't lose their voucher due to funding. They may lose their voucher if they've been terminated for their assistance from doing something that they shouldn't have been doing or staying in a final fail unit. Then yes, they're going to lose their voucher, but that's been always.
Okay. Someone else is asking, have you considered that Allegheny County real estate taxes have increased 36% this year? $50 may not cover the tax increase.
My home, Allegheny County taxes increased this year also. And I'm not sure how much my salary will cover it. So no, we did not, because you always have the option to go on the rental market. You can find a tenant willing to pay that rent. We will give your other tenant, the HCV tenant, a voucher to move, because I will tell you, there are a lot of unleased units that were typically leased in our program prior to us stopping the waiting list issuance.
Okay. Kadia.
Yes, hello. I think similar question to what I had asked before, but I just wanted to confirm for sure. So this cap on the rent increase.
Sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead, Kadia.
okay, no, thank you. So this cap on the rent increase is completely independent of if you have a unit that's going back on the market fresh and you're then just seeking to get the rent reasonable fair market value for that unit, correct?
An initial lease up is different than a rent increase. This is rent increases for tenants in your unit.
Okay.
When you come onto the market, we are going to determine rent reasonable. It may be higher. It may be lower. We don't know. We use affordablehousing.com. They have a program that determines the rent reasonable for us. Now, I can tell you that if your unit is in excellent shape, you've got some great amenities like a ceiling fan, microwave, dishwasher, you're going to get more money.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And Anitra.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Thank you for taking the time to schedule this Zoom call because I know we all had a lot of questions. But my question is, some of my tenants receive 100% of their rent paid by housing, by
Mhm.
ACHA.
Mhm.
are they not working to, maybe contribute so some of that money can go to some other people? Is there a reason why some people get 100% plus a utility check if they're able to work?
We cannot do anything about that. Their rent is based on their income. I will tell you that we are looking very closely at people who claim they get zero income, because I've yet found somebody who can live on no money. So we are looking into that. And if that's the case, if they're hiding income from us, they're frauding. And we will go in there and we will raise their rent and we will back charge if we have to. So yes, that does contribute to it, Anitra. It does, because the less income they have, the more we have to pay.
Okay, and that's what I was going to say. I don't want to rat anybody out, but what you said is exactly true. People saying they don't work or have zero income, and I've had people who do hair on the side, do other things, and so when you all are paying 100% and they're saying they're not working, that is taken away from another family being able to be on the program.
I agree, but it's really hard if people are doing hair on the side and pocket that money. I don't know how we find that out, because most people will say, no, I don't.
And I feel like it's important to also, add that we encourage working, right? We want tenants to work, and we have programs that help them to encourage them to work. So I feel like we're not sitting around saying, don't work, we'll pay for you. We don't want to do that. So I feel like we should add that too. Bill Deemer, thanks for the kind words. Okay, I have several units that renew in December. I am always about a year behind in fair market rents. Is there a way that I could get caught up to fair market rent?
First of all, if your recertification is December, you're not a year behind. Our payment standards go out January of 2025. So you are getting the payment standards for 2024 that everyone whose research started in January 2024, that's what they got. What?
Hopefully that answered your question. Jackie or Melvin? Go ahead.
Yes, hey, this is Melvin again. So, hey, so quick question again. So, given what you said on the standard piece, so for the example that I shared previously, I mean, for area XYZ, and you mentioned the decreases in these certain areas. So technically, those standards don't even, I mean, they don't matter. They don't mean anything, right?
No, they always mean something. They always mean something. We can go up to that if the unit warrants it. Sometimes units warrant it. I mean, my inspectors have gone in and they've come back and said, Kim, this is like the Taj Mahal of units. It's totally redone. They should get more rent. And then that's how we determine the rent.
All right. Well, okay. Good. Thanks for answering that. Another part B to that question. So, of course, hey, we got a lot of units in your program, right? And we pride ourselves on that top echelon, level of delivery for the tenant to give them the A+ experience. What happens when inspector rates it at X, but you disagree? What protocol should we go in that regard? I've had a couple of instances whereas, and I'm not throwing out names, but I mean, I disagree with what the inspector gave to the identification. So how should that be handled moving forward? I guess from a landlord standpoint.
Okay, you give us 3 comparables that are in non-assisted units.
I don't think you answered my question per
If
se.
you disagree, that's what I'm telling you. That's what
Okay.
Because HUD regulations state that you can't have a hearing for rent reasonable or payment standards. So I'm telling you the best way to do that, Melvin, is to get us 3 comps in the area from non-assisted units, send photos, give us photos.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And
hey,
we'll
Kim,
look at it.
that wasn't that wasn't the way it was last year. I mean, so that's why I think we're asking all these questions, right? So we see the, 1 bedroom in McKees Rocks is 1036, right? In 2024, right? We bought 60 units in 2024, 60 doors. Not one of those payment requests or rent requests was denied. Melvin was always like within $10 to $12 from that standard. And we're seeing something totally different in recent weeks. So that's why we're kind of asking all these questions is, we're trying to ensure that our numbers work by going on, about, what is posted as the standard. And again, we kind of feel like we go, we have above average units compared to other units that, we've come across. So that's why we're asking that question.
Okay. There's a difference, as I said, with payment standards. Just because it's the payment standard does not mean it is rent reasonable.
But in 2024 it was, so in 2025, that's not the case. Is that right?
I don't know. I don't do the rent reasonable. I do a few here and there just to keep up on it. Our inspectors, our inspector supervisor and our landlord liaison, Mike False, runs those for us.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Frank.
Yes, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think it probably would be a good idea to have some of those individuals or inspectors on to kind of explain what rent reasonable means. You're asking for a Taj Mahal property when you got ghetto tenants. Like, how does that benefit either one of us? So we got to kind of be fair with the quality of tenants that we get in versus the quality that we're putting into our property to be tore up a year later, then have to fix it back up, knowing the inspector just came in and passed it, and now it's back on the tenant to repair it. Where do we draw the line at there?
Okay, I'm going to ask you, Frank, do you do suitability? Do you screen for suitability?
Yes.
What do you do?
We do background checks, we do credit checks, we do reference checks, and we check with prior landlords before the previous landlord. We also pop up at the property. So I mean, you got tenants that pull up in Mercedes Benzes and fur coats and got 6 months worth of rent, but then they don't have your rent once you allow them to move in. So it's hard to kind of say, well, this tenant is a Taj Mahal type of tenant.
I'm not saying the Taj Mahal type of tenant you are.
Well, you use that as an example of a property, so that's why I use them as an example of a tenant.
There are units that have had new windows put in, new flooring, and that's what we consider the Taj Mahal.
Okay.
That's just an expression I used. If you are doing credit checks and tenants aren't paying you rent, then you either don't have a good credit check or they're playing you. Do you take them to magistrate?
Yeah, I take them to magistrate, but we know once they're in the property, everything is out the window. Like, you could do a credit check, you could do background checks, you can do all those checks, but at the same time, as landlords, we have to understand that we can only market to a certain quality of tenant anyway, depending on what neighborhood our properties are in. So you may have to bend a little bit for a 550 tenant versus a 700 tenant because of our neighborhood. But how can an inspector come in and say your property is not what it should be, so we're not going to give you that rent? That wasn't always like that. I've been a part of your program since about 2020. So it wasn't always that. It was always based off of what was the rents in that area. So to leave it up to some inspectors to say what you should get in rent or not, I think this should be a deeper conversation, even with inspectors on the line.
Okay, what I can tell you is what I stated before. We use affordablehousing.com. We put in your rent you're requesting, the utilities the tenant is that has to pay the responsibility for the utilities. We put it in any amenities that you give. We click a button, it tells us what's rent reasonable. This company who does this affordable housing, they're not even based in Pittsburgh. They do it throughout the country. So it is not somebody here.
Anything like me.
It's not
when I was there, but it's
Corey. Did you give us a minute? Thank you. So what we do is we put that in so that the inspectors aren't saying, oh, I don't like this. I don't like you. I don't like this. It's based on the computer generated amount. I can't, the first thing in the first rule of real estate is location, location, location. I can tell you that owners who have units in Ross Township, Mount Lebanon, they're getting 160% of our payment standard.
Well, so that just comes down to the mindset and the investor strategy. The less you pay for a property, the more of return we're going to get. The more we pay for a property, the less return we're going to get. So we really can't say if you're investing in Squirrel Hill versus investing in Homewood that you should get less. If our properties are quality and our properties are the same number of bedrooms, we should get the same amount of rent.
Absolutely not. And if your properties are in the city, I can't answer that. Do you have property in Allegheny County under our authority?
Yes, but I'm just using that as I'm spinning off of your comments and just using those as an example. If we got the same amount of bedrooms and whether it's in what you consider a lower class neighborhood or upper class neighborhood, why are we getting less in rents?
Because you should. Your location is not in an area that is built up or built higher. You bought that unit knowing it was in that neighborhood. Correct?
Oh, okay, but these still are people.
Ever think it's going to be the same amount of money as a property in a higher income level?
And I feel like, to add, not to interrupt you again, Frank, it's, these numbers, they are determined based off of mainly school district, right, Kim? So they take that into consideration, demographic, what people have access to, close to bus lines, close to grocery stores, things along those lines. Those are just examples. So, Kim is right. It is based off of location. And I think, the two men that do the rent reasonables would also agree too.
I definitely appreciate your time. I don't want to take up nobody else's time, but we got to kind of get out of basing things off of culture, demographics, who lives in what neighborhood, who lives in another neighborhood. If the properties are livable, if the properties are safe, and the properties are just the same amount of bedrooms as another one, then I believe that people in lower incomes and the landlord should be able to get the same amount of rent. I appreciate y'all.
Frank, where are your properties at?
I have properties all over the city between East Pittsburgh, McKeesport, Duquesne, East Liberty, Homewood, the North Side. So,
yeah, I mean, you should be getting more, I think, for East Liberty than Duquesne.
Right, but I'm still not
You're
saying
not
that is,
arguing.
huh? I'm still not saying that is fair, because if I got nice property out in Duquesne, I should be getting the same amount of rent as I'm getting in East Liberty. Who gave somebody, who left somebody in charge of deciding what quality a person should be or have in order to get paid? Who left somebody in charge of that? Like, I understand that's y'all rules, but like, let's think about it. Everybody should be getting treated fair, from the tenant to the landlord. And then if everybody's getting treated fair, then maybe we would make our houses like the Taj Mahal. If we was getting fair rent for our houses.
But Frank, you don't have to take that voucher.
No,
That's your choice.
Yeah, we understand that, but we also got to voice our opinion too, because let's be honest. If a lot of our mom and pop landlords start falling off, y'all will have trouble, because there won't be no affordable housing for y'all programs, and the money will really be cut because you're not keeping up the standard. So let's be honest. If we decide to say we don't want to deal with y'all, then y'all will have a problem on your hands, because there will be no housing for nobody, so there will be no funding for y'all to get. So we got to play fair on both ends.
Okay, thank you for your opinion.
Thank you.
We're going to move on.
Thanks, Frank.
Yes,
Jackie,
welcome.
go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I totally echo what he says. I mean, one of our mission statements when it comes to being affordable housing landlords is to try to uplift communities. And I was under the impression that because we were Section 8 or affordable housing landlords, we were getting incentivized to try to uplift some of these opportunity zones where we invest, right? So our job is to try to buy as many units as possible in these opportunity zones, like he mentioned. But if we are not going to get a little bit extra for trying to uplift that area, I think it's going to have an adverse effect. Because I could tell you right now, as we're sitting here and we're kind of listening to what's going on, I think our strategy is going to change. And we really need to rethink if we're going to be in this in affordable housing, or if we're gonna kind of fall off the map. So I 100% agree with what he's saying. And the rent numbers, they have to make sense. And we're here to really provide housing and to be partners with you all. But I think by, limiting our rent, our feeling is, if the payment standards are this, if they fluctuate a little bit based on the quality of your unit, I understand that. But, we're seeing just a whole bunch of different disparity in what we're coming back with after spending $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 on some of these bills. So just want to understand that. I mean, Hannah, we've been working together. Melvin's been a landlord since 2005. So, I hope you can understand and appreciate, our point of view. And, if you'd like to discuss further, we'd be happy to, just provide opinions so that you can, if you're interested.
I feel like for this in particular, I am going to also speak on behalf of Mike False, too. Hopefully he won't get mad at me, but
I'm able to hear now.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, I'll quickly, you can chime in after this, Mike, but I think you'll agree, Mike and I have jobs because of all of you. So we are on your team. I feel like I have over the past year and a half done that. I won't get too much into it, but we're fighting for you. We want you to be a part of our team. And again, we do understand that this is frustrating. A lot of the time we don't agree with the rules that are in place, and we're trying our best to, make the most of it. And, where we can help you, we try really hard. And Kim, I know, echoes that as well. So, we could very well have, just to give you an example, not that we could have cut rent increases totally, right? But the $50 is what we want to do. So, and what we can do. So I think, again, we are on your team and we want you to continue to be landlords with us. We hope that you will. I have a job because of you. To repeat myself, so I don't want you to think that we're not on your side. We are. We are every single day, every day. Mike, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, like I said, it goes back to everything you said's true. But on the rafters is a spot for 3 comparable rents, like Kim mentioned this meeting, and we've mentioned in the past. If you find 3 non-subsidized units that are the same, single family home that you're trying to put on a program, 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom. If you find 3 non-subsidized units with the rent you're
I think we lost you, Mike.
Mike, you're muted.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was saying is just supply the 3 non-subsidized units that shows the rent is what you're requesting in that area and higher.
I just hope everybody is understanding. I believe the quality of the unit is what's being talked about. If my unit is in an area that is low income or the properties around it aren't up to standard, but I have developed my property to be high standard, then I lose because I don't get the benefit that somebody in a different neighborhood with a property that may not even be as well kept as mine is getting paid more money.
But again, Mr. Caldwell, you have to understand that different areas command different rents.
I understand that, but the areas, okay, we're supposed to all be on the same team, and I guess what we like you guys to do is to stand up for us as landlords when these rules come down, to push back as much as we can and say, I know Lawrenceville is up and coming, so their rent is a little bit more. But I have this property in Penn Hills that I have air conditioning and fans and all of that stuff that if I compared the 2 properties together, people would probably want to live in mine than Lawrenceville, but I can't get the same price that I get in Lawrenceville. And if you can't see that, then we're not on the same team.
Well, I would disagree with you there. First off, I don't know Lawrenceville, so, and that's not even in our jurisdiction. I'm sure you're just using that as an example. We've got to do what we feel we have to do, and we are required by HUD. And we can't change some HUD regulations because they're Congress. They are approved by Congress. Even HUD can't change some of their own regulations because it goes through the congressional actions. Now, Congress, I don't know if I'm saying this to anyone. If I offend you, I apologize, but they're pretty screwed up now and have been. So we are looking at regulations. Sure, we could stand up and say, no, you shouldn't do that. No one's going to listen to us.
And that's fair. That's fair. That's all. I think that's what I wanted to hear, and I didn't hear that. I just heard these are the rules, and you live by them or you die by them. But to hear what you just said, I think would make all of us feel better that you are trying to represent us, even if you're getting the pushback that probably comes from HUD.
And I will let you know the majority of public housing authorities in the country agree. And we have tried. They put comments out when they put a new regulation out. I have seen so many people comment, and it's the regulation they put out in the first place.
Yeah, we're good. I think I agree.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have about 14 minutes left where we are signing off right at 6 p.m. So Anitra, you've had your hand raised for a few minutes. Go right ahead.
Hi, yes, I wanted to go back to something Kim said earlier when Frank was saying about screening the tenants, and once they get in the property, they can completely change. We do the same. We do, ceiling fans, central heating and air, sometimes granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, new flooring. But my concern is, like I said earlier, about people getting 100% rent and utility checks. Some of our properties are in McKees Rocks where the sewer is billed to the owner. These people are not kept keeping up with their sewer bills, or sometimes they'll move another person into the house that's not there. And instead of us, I don't want to say, we don't want to report it to you, but we just choose not to renew their lease. So after I saw this release about, only asking for the $50 increase, is it fair to say that maybe we should be reporting this to you all because some of these people aren't deserving of the program if they are, in fact, lying and doing things that are going to affect the quality of home and price that we get for the house because of their actions? So how do we handle that when tenants are violating the lease? It's one thing to take them to magistrate, but what happens after they go to magistrate? I had somebody didn't pay a sewer bill for 3 months, and then we ended up owing like $400 or $500 after she was out of the property. Even if we take her to court, do we report that to you all, or does she just move into another unit with another voucher and continue on the program?
Okay, two things. You should always report to us if there's
Yes.
fraud. Always. We take it very seriously. We follow up. We have called tenants in to our office when landlords have stated, you're tearing up my unit. I have sent emails to tenants after they have moved out when landlords send me photos and send them the photos and say, this is not right. This is not your property. When you get that magistrate decision, and we get a lot of them, we hold tenants responsible. They have 1 year to repay you back. If they do not, we move to terminate their voucher. And even with neighborhood legal services, I have yet been challenged on terminating their voucher because rent is rent. You have to pay it. You have to keep a unit good. You're a tenant. That's the landlord's investment. Sometimes it's their retirement. We are so proactive with our tenants, but we can't do something we don't know.
I'm going to say something real quick. Anitra, I know your properties. I've been in them, and they're, like you said, they're well beyond what's expected. And like Kim said, you have to report something. We can't do anything unless we know about it. I tell this to landlords all the time, doing pre-inspection, somebody new, someone that's been with us forever, you have to let us know. Even if the tenant's working something, doing something on the side, working and reporting to us that they're not, we need to know that. Because like you said, there's people out there that really need the assistance and they're waiting and they can't get it because somebody's out here abusing it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, Mike and Kim. I'll make sure I do going forward.
Please, we would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Kadia, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to say something on the commentary about the equity of all of this. I will say this, that we still live in a capitalist society, and so there is the factor of markets driving pricing. And so I do actually understand the idea of the vouchers and the payment standards being in keeping with the market, and such that, yes, something that a house that is in Lawrenceville, for example, would be more and makes sense, would be more than a house in Duquesne. I think, though, in terms of having sort of a balanced perspective, because I'm seeing both sides, and I'm definitely in the camp of wanting to be a landlord that is providing a home that people take pride in, right? So something that is above what else is out there in that particular neighborhood. I think, though, for me, and I appreciate the advocacy and I appreciate the fact that you are still doing an increase, even though it's a much smaller one than I think most people would want. There is still an increase, because I did hear rumblings from last year about other programs that frankly just got caught. I mean, there was not even an increase whatsoever. But I think what is important, though, is if the goalpost, quote unquote goalpost, has shifted, or the way that you decide the rent increases have shifted. I think that's what's important for us going forward in terms of our being able to make decisions of where we buy, how much renovation we put into those properties, et cetera. Because if if in the past we kind of got lulled into thinking that it was kind of just an automatic increase at a certain level, and now it's going to be this, and is it going to be this going forward? I think that's where the trepidation comes about, where it's like, okay, well, do I pour the $60,000 in this unit, or do I upgrade it only to this particular level? And I think all of us would still be inclined to upgrade it even more, but maybe we cut back a little bit because the numbers just won't work anymore. So I think it's just kind of that. And I don't know if you can answer it now. Maybe you would say you don't have a crystal ball. But I think that's kind of what's important to us to find out, like, is there now truly a shift, and how permanent is it, so that when we're doing our analyses and we're making decisions, whether it's the initial buy, the renovation, or even how we manage it on an ongoing basis, maybe we're quicker to report things, as Anitra brought up. It kind of we can make better informed decisions going forward. And I think that's kind of, regardless of which camp anyone falls into, or what you believe, or what you're a proponent of, I think that's probably what would be helpful for us going forward.
Okay, I can tell you that the rent increase limitations of the $50 will go through this year, through into April of 2026, only because that's fair to everyone. I don't want to say, oh, we'll start new and give more increases in January. That's not fair to those of you who have tenants who have later in recertification dates. So I want to be fair. That's my whole big thing. I'm fair, I'm consistent. So I want to be fair and consistent with everyone. Past April 26th, I'm hoping that somebody in Washington, D.C., from the White House on down to Congress, realizes that we need money to house people. That if we don't give landlords what we think they deserve, what they do deserve, we're not going to have landlords. We can't run this program without landlords. But I can't tell you other than that. I mean, I have my retirement in the stock market, and I have lost money. Anyone in the stock market, it's down, it goes up, and no one knows. If I did, I'd be Warren Buffett and I'd be out of here in a heartbeat.
Nicholas, go ahead. Don't forget to unmute. That's okay.
You have to unmute him, Hannah?
It's tricky on a cell phone. I had to go back and forth in and out of the meeting.
You could put it in the chat if you want, Nicholas.
Yeah, if you want.
It might be easier.
Any other questions while Nick is typing some stuff, figuring his technology out? We've got about 5 more minutes left.
I do have a question. I had put it in the chat. This is Colleen. I'm new to the program, and I have a question regarding the sewage and water bill. I kept the water and sewage in my name, but what happens if, like, how do landlords handle if the tenant is late and you're receiving notices and you're letting them know that, of course, the bill is due, and let's say if they don't pay it in time and on their water is cut off, how do landlords and how do they handle that?
If their water is stopped because they didn't pay the bill, we issue a termination notice immediately. And then if they're evicted, if a tenant is evicted from a property, they lose their voucher. That is a HUD regulation.
Oh.
You take them to magistrate and send that to us with a detailed description of what they owe, we will hold it against them. There is a HUD website, national website. It is called Debts Owed. When housing authorities put something in there, that triggers like a, I don't even know what it triggers, but it gives it a record. And every housing authority can go in there. And if someone has been in there for 10 years, it'll tell us that 10 years ago or 9 years ago, a tenant didn't pay their landlord the sewage and there's a judgment against them. They can't get a voucher anywhere in the country.
Okay. So basically what you're saying, if once the water is turned off, I'm to send that to you all and then you all.
Immediately.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Nicholas put it in the chat.
I think he did too. And we've got about 3 minutes. Nick, my question is, I have a 4-bedroom house to go by the heartbeat rule. And Kim, maybe you start by describing that. Do I need 9 people to get the 4-bedroom voucher rate?
That is one of our ways of cutting back on our housing assistance. Is that the only way? Yes and no. A tenant going in, if they have sufficient income, can pay up to 40% of their income as opposed to 30%. So they may be able to afford that unit, especially if they have a 3-bedroom voucher. If they have a 1-bedroom voucher, there is no way in the world that they can afford a 4-bedroom unit. Doesn't matter. I have seen people do it. I don't know if there's something between them and the landlord that they've decided the landlord will take a 1-bedroom payment standard and let them rent the unit for that. You can always do that. They can always get that. But 2 heartbeats is what we call it. 2 heartbeats per bedroom. That's what we have to do because we don't have the extra money right now. Just like we are putting, we are holding the rent increases. We're holding the tenants to a different occupancy standard. And I always love to say this, look, folks, nobody ever promised a kid their own bedroom. When I was growing up, we were in a 3-bedroom ranch, a small 3-bedroom ranch. And I unfortunately had 2 sisters and 1 brother. And 3 of us girls were in the same bedroom while my stinky brother got his own. That's what it is. And that's what we're going back to.
Kim, hi Kim. Could you share that website, Debts Owed? Yeah, we no.
Cannot. That is a HUD website. You have to be a HUD, you have to be someone usually in a housing authority, and you have to work there and get it. We cannot do that. You are always welcome, as before. Email us, email Mike, Hannah, me, and say, hey, has this tenant been a good tenant? We will tell you in a heartbeat. We can't just come out and tell you, but if you ask us, we will tell you the truth. I've done it.
And we do it too. So you know, Kim, you always have access to us. Okay, so it is 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and cut the meeting. We do have our last in-person meeting, our only in-person meeting, but our last meeting regarding the new rent increase policy on Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday, the 19th. It is here at our central office. And it is from 9 to 10 a.m. So we hope that, you know, you'll come there. We will try really hard to limit the conversation to just the new rent increase policy. We understand that things can go a little haywire from there, but we will try our best to do that so questions get answered and everything is purposeful. We really appreciate everybody coming too. Go ahead.
Can I say one thing, Hannah? If you have any ideas on what you would like to see with the landlord liaison meetings, please send them to Mike and Hannah. We will discuss any topic on a Zoom meeting you want. We're an open book.
We are, and I'm actually working on that survey now that you guys will all get to see what topics you're looking to talk about. So, you know, we are always, as Kim said, we're an open book. Our phones are always open to you all. Our emails are always open to you all. We are here for you. Mike and I literally would not have jobs without you. So I say that every day to at least most of you. So we do really appreciate you all coming. Thanks, Kim, for spending the extra couple hours on this too. And we hope that we will see you all, most of you, on Wednesday, the 19th, 9 a.m. here at our central office. Okay.
Have a nice Valentine's Day.
Happy
Don't
Valentine's.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. I know we kind of beat you up today, but
Okay.
definitely recognize that you guys are doing your best, because it is a limited pool of money, and I recognize that you did a lot of analysis to figure out what you can do for us for this year. So as long, and I appreciate your keeping the dialogue open. So as long as we have this forum to just have very transparent, open dialogue, we appreciate that. So thank you.
We appreciate you guys.
Thank you guys for bringing us up to date and keeping us informed. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all so much.